Here, before I start, what is your phone number? You did not have it, and I've been trying to contact you, and I didn't have your phone number, and I felt bad. And I'm happy that you're here. Happy to see you. Tonight, I'm going to be brief. I'm not going to hold you guys a long time, but here's what I'm going to speak on for a short time. A block. And here's what I found as I was coming home last night. I went down to see my grandson, and as I was heading home last night, I said, in my life, what do I want to be for him? And I looked up this once I got home. There's a stumbling block, there's a stepping stone, and then there's a building block. So I asked myself, I said, in my lifetime, what do I want to be for him? But I don't want to just, I don't want to be it for him, for just him, but all of my friends and all of my neighbors and everybody in my life. I said, Daryl, what do you want to be for him? Are you want to be a stumbling block, a stepping stone, or a building block? And I thought about that, and I hopped on the phone, and I looked up some things, and I want to read a few brief things. All of them are actually the same. And I was surprised as I seen it. I said, how could all of them be the same? But here's how they aren't the same. It is where they're placed. A block is a block, right? Now, if it's a stumbling block, they hinder you. It makes it harder to do the things you are trying to do. So if it's placed in your way and it makes it harder for you, it's a stumbling block. I found if it's placed somewhere to where it makes it easier, it's a stepping stone. Stepping stone makes it easier. And I thought about it. I said, for my little grandson, I'd like to be a stepping stone. I'd like to make it easier. But then there's one more block. Building block. Building block. As I read that, it's a block that is not used by itself, but it's used with other blocks. And as it's used with other blocks, it forms things like a foundation. Now, I hung on that, and I read that, and I read about that, and building block, and I began to think about the church. Building block, as Cheryl sang this morning, I'm going to use that as my example. As I sat back there after everybody sang, I wasn't going to speak this morning because enough folks had sung. But here's what happened. After I'm going to say she sung, but to me it was like she preached this morning. And I enjoyed you. But as I sat back there, I seen where I just had to hop on the bandwagon. I had something to say. A building block. It made it easier. In fact, it fixed it where I couldn't just sit back there. I couldn't shut up. Now, I think about the church, our lives, and how we are. Now, here's what hit me. Okay. Who we are as far as blocks are concerned, it's up to us how we live our lives. Now, if we're drawing in, folks, we're doing what? We are a building block. If we're scattering, folks, what have we become? Stumbling block. Now, here's what we don't want to happen. What we don't want to be a stumbling block for, folks, because in this world, there are enough stumbling blocks. But here's where I'm going. Have somebody ask you, would you do something to help me? And you stop and think, well, why did they ask me? Because that person couldn't do it themselves. So why did they ask me? Now, as I sat back here all day, I wasn't supposed to speak at this afternoon. Somebody else was supposed to speak. But I worked on this last night. I got home and I was on this. I couldn't let this go. But he said something in church this morning. And I thought, that's exactly where I'm going. As he spoke on text. Now, as text applied for that job, he should have been hired, right? He should have been hired. But he wasn't hired. He had to have someone to speak up for him, to insist that he be hired. Now, it would have been the right thing for him to have been hired, but sometimes things just happen, right? Sometimes things just happen. But here's what happens. If somebody steps up and insists and say, I know this guy, he needs a shot, if you insist, we can make a difference, and we have become what? Building. Now, a while back, I asked somebody to help me go do something I could do myself. I had been trying to get something done for a month, and it hadn't happened. I'd started, something would happen, I'd started with something else. And then I got to a point, I got it there, and I said, it's there. All I have to do was haul it home, and there was something just kept saying, ask Robert to help me. I said, I don't want to bother Robert. I said, he's got things he's doing. I said, I can get that home. I said, me and Michael, they can get this home. And I had blocks, I had jacks, I had spares, I had everything I could think of. I thought of everything that might go wrong. And I said, but let me do what my mind said. I said, let me ask Robert to help. And I asked him, and he did. And I'm glad he helped us. Because that was about to be a nightmare. I look back on what happened. We had a flat before we started. A tire had to be changed before we started. And then we started home. And here's what he didn't know. See, I had bought this sign to go on the trailer. And here's what I said. I can put this on. And he said, we don't have to have that. I said, are you sure, Robert? He said, we don't have to have it. Now, he don't know why I bought that sign. I won't go into it. It doesn't matter why I had it, but he said we didn't decide, and he was right. He was right. But we started home. And here's what Robert didn't know. See, it made the trip easier. He drove while I prayed the whole while. He didn't know it. He didn't know it. But I did.
You prayed for his salvation?
No. I prayed for us because we had a load. We had a heavy load, and I was praying, Lord, just let us get to crawl these birds. And we talked, and I enjoyed Robert, Michael, and I. We talked, and we had a good time. But I prayed the entire while. And then we drove, and we talked, and we finally had a flat. I knew it was going to happen. In my soul and my heart of hearts, I knew. I said, before we get to Curl, I was praying, I said, but I know we're going to have a flat. We did. And he didn't stop right then. He eased on up. And I sat there and I thought, why is he not stopping? And after he eased on up, and after he stopped where he stopped, it made all the sense in the world. Made all the sense in the world. Now, why am I saying that? A building block. There are going to be people that are going to ask you to do things that's not going to make sense. There have been times I've said, well, that person can do it themselves. If somebody asks you, they may not explain it. They have a reason, they may not. But just do it. Why did I say do it? He eased on up and where he stopped, I thought he can't stop there because we're blocking folks. It's a driveway there, it's a street. We can't stop there because somebody has to get up. But here's what he said. He said, I know who's down there, and he's got room, and he can I no problem. This guy know what he's doing? But he did. We stopped in a really good place, and we was able to take the tire off and head up here and have the flat changed. But it was just in time because they were about to close. We got there just in time. In fact, the guy who fixed that flat said, I'm going home in about 15 minutes. I said, I don't want to hold you up. You have to go home and understand. He said, no, I'm going to fix this flat for you. Now, after we had that fixed and we got back out there and we put on this tire, and it didn't take us but 3 minutes to get all this stuff. And then we eased on home. And I told you think, well, that's not that big. That's not that huge. He didn't have to be there. You still got the flat change. I didn't know why he stopped where he stopped. After we stopped and after we got the tire off, and after we got it changed, and I got back out there, it made all the sense in the world. Had we not have stopped where he stopped, Probably never would have got that thing up. Had we have stopped where I would have stopped, had he have not been with me, it'd have been a terrible ordeal. Hey, the ground was soft, and it was a bad spot actually where we had it, but he knew to drive on up. Here's why I asked him to help us. I knew he knew. He hauled hay, he'd haul these big trailers and things around. But here's why I asked Robert for confidence. He knew. He was aware of some things that I didn't know, and I knew I didn't know. Here's where I'm saying. In that area, I wasn't as strong as he was. I needed some help. Here's where I'm going with this. A building block opposed to a stone block. I'm going to read something to you, and I found this last night. It said, "You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you." You did not choose me, but I chose you. We are all here to do something. We make a difference in people's lives if we'll act, if we'll be there for each other. A building block. See, I'm going to fall short in some things. And let me say this, and hey, don't write this down because I know where you're going. There are a lot of things I don't know. But here's what happens. I've got family, I've got friends I can head to, folks. I can ask for help. And as I ask for help, I can get the help I need. If I've surrounded myself with the right folks, and if I've got good Christian, God-fearing folks around me, I can get the help I need to get to where I'm trying to go. Now, there are going to be folks that were there. That wasn't a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. A storm hit. I had to help pay those birds. Had I not had those birds, I had some small pigs, and those small pigs were frozen. Now, hey, there are going to folks say, well, that's not that big. Well, here's where I'm going. Hey, my story seems small, but it's the same way in our lives. We need help to get to where we're going. Hey, that's where what comes in, the love of Christ. If people have the love of Christ in their hearts, they're going to stop and help us, and we are going to stop and help others. As Cheryl sang this morning, I was blessed. I was so happy that she sang that song. I hear her talking about her boy. Why am I saying that? There are times that we're going to need somebody to help us. There are going to be times that we're going to feel like we're going down here. Now, I didn't feel like I was down here, but this morning when she sung, it got me up here when Cheryl was through. It filled me back up. In this life, we need to be filled back up. And we need family, we need friends, we need to be here for each other. I watched Robert after we got back home. Here's what he said at the hog pit. I said, man, I'm sorry. It took all day. He said, it's okay. He said, I had planned to spend the whole day, and I didn't say it to him. And I said to myself, oh, boy, I'm glad you did. Because when you hang with me, that's what happens. It takes all day. And oftentimes, there are going to be things that seem small for somebody else. But let me say this. If people ask you to help them, it's for a reason. Oftentimes, what seems easy for you is hard for somebody else. But if you'll help them, it makes it will fix things so you can get those things done. Now, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Have you ever been somewhere and you had to have help and help didn't come? Have you? Have you ever been somewhere in a spot where you really needed help and nobody came? How did you feel? Yep. And here's what happens. You become discouraged. You become very discouraged. That's why I'm saying this. We're here to help each other. We're here to be here for each other. We are here to lift each other up so we do not become discouraged. The love of God, and I'm going to read that again. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And it's you are here to help, to build, to grow, to share, and to lead. And I stayed that. And I can't stress it. Because as he drove, he doesn't know. We talked. Man, it was a slow drive, and I did a lot of praying. But we got home. We got home. We got home. Now I say we got home. At the end of this life, hey, that's what we want to happen. What we want everybody to get home. But we know it says in here that everybody isn't going to get home, right? But here's what we need to do. Do all that we can. And as I say, do all that we can. Hey, the one thing that we have that will make the most difference in folks' lives is the love of Christ. How do we show it? By being a blessing to somebody else. As she sang that song this morning, he didn't know it, but he almost not got to preach this morning. Because I got fired up. I did. I got fired up. And when I get like that, I want to holler and scream. And I started to, but he didn't get to preach last week, and I thought I wouldn't be rude. Why did I get fired up? Because I felt the Holy Spirit. I was able to feel the Holy Spirit through her singing. It built me up. A building block. But so often there are people have become a stumbling block. All a stumbling block will do is it'll destroy and divide. And let me say this, if we ourselves don't act as a block, hey, to build on who will. Now let me say this to you. Understand what I'm saying. Am I saying that we are the chief cornerstone? No. We know who that is, right? Hey, the chief cornerstone is Jesus Christ. But we are here to help build on that. Hey, to help lead, to share, hey, to grow, to build. Yeah, hey, these things I can't say it enough, because as we drove, as we got closer and closer and closer, I said, I think we're gonna make it. I think we're gonna make it. And we're just a few miles out. And it happened to be. He said, well, hey, we have to fly. I didn't even know how to fly. What happened? Well, here's where I'm going with that. It doesn't matter how close we get if you don't get home. It was in vain, right? It was in vain. We need somebody to be with us all the way. Who's going to be with us all the way? Jesus Christ. But who's here to point the way to him? There are folks who are lost. It's our job to what? To point the way. Hey, to share with people. As she sang this morning about grace. How about folks who don't know about that grace? There are actually folks out there who don't know about that grace. How do they understand that grace? How do they find out about that grace? Through us, right? As we share, as we sing, as we take our time up, as we bless other folks, as we take every opportunity that we can to share and lead, is how folks find out about that grace. That grace, that grace. That is so important. Because all I could think of as I asked Robert, don't you know how to drag a trailer? Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? That's how sorry guys. That's how some folks are. That's how some folks are. Now there are a lot of other reasons why I ask them to help me. I won't go into it. But there's some things you shouldn't have to explain. Now, why do I say some things you shouldn't have to explain? If we have the love of Christ in our hearts, I don't want you to explain it. Just let me know that you need me, help you, be there for you. Now, why is that so important? There's some folks have an ego. There's some folks don't know how to ask for help. And there are some folks who just don't know. And folks ask, hey, let's help them. Hey, let's be there for them. Now, I didn't have a whole lot. I hope these things I've said have made sense. And I'm going to read this one more time. Because as I read this, it made all the sense in the world to me. You did not choose me, but I chose you. You were chosen. And not only were you chosen, but you was appointed that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain. That whatever you ask the Father in my name, He may give. Here was my prayer, Lord, just let us get home with this big old burden. Hey, we got home. Hey, it was fine. But as I look back, I knew, had He not have helped us, it had been a mess. It would have been a mess. Now, it seemed small to Him, but it was huge for us. In our lives, there are going to be folks who are going to make small impacts. There are folks who are going to make big impacts. And I don't care how small or I don't care how large you make that impact. Hey, you do what you can to help lead people to Christ. Let's be here for each other. I'm not going to hold you guys long because we're going to come back next week and we're going to have somebody who can do a really good job of speaking for us, and we're looking forward to hearing him speak. I'll pray, guys, and that's all I have. And let me say this to you as your throat clears. We're looking forward to hearing you speak too. I'm going to push some people, and I'm hoping to hear her sing more. I'm stepping out, aren't I? Push some people. I enjoyed that. I'm going to close in prayer, and that's all I have. And you know I'm going to be all over you, so I don't even worry about that. Lord, as we go our way, I just pray, Lord, that each and everyone here, Lord, will always stop and help share the word with those whom we come in contact with. Lord, in your name I pray. Amen. Say, I didn't hold you.